Between Worlds, a Mayusa's original book. This is first 10 chapter. Chapter 1. Monday in Between Worlds. Few dare dream of magic and chemistry in the same breath, but Marcus Chen lived them both. Reality fractured around him as he calculated molecular bonds, worlds shifting like broken glass beneath his consciousness. The fluorescent lights of the university chemistry lab dissolved into flickering candlelight. Pencils scratching on paper gave way to distant cattle lowing and his grandfather's cough echoing through thin wooden walls. The world remade itself, as it had every time he'd fallen asleep for 17 years. Marcus woke to chaos, the unpleasant kind.
Told you the barley wouldn't take in that cursed dirt.
And I told you we needed to plant something. We can't eat dirt and wishes.
Well, we're about to find out if we can eat regret.
Baby Kira wailed. She'd inherited her father's talent for perfect timing, followed by 13 pairs of feet shuffling across floorboards that groaned under the weight of too many people trying to exist in a space meant for 5. Marcus rubbed his eyes. The ache of overworked shoulders replaced the phantom memory of holding a pencil. The contrast never got easier. One moment he was Marcus Chen, honor student worried about SAT scores. The next, Marcus of Millhaven, figuring out how to keep his family from starving.
Marcus, get down here before your uncles murder each other over vegetables.
Coming, Da.
The house had been built for one family, maybe 2, in a prosperous year when the gods smiled and the rains came right. But Grandfather Aldrich's farm now sheltered 3 generations of desperate souls. 13 people, 40 acres, and every season, less food. Marcus squeezed down the narrow stairs into the main room. His whole family was crammed around 2 mismatched tables pushed together in organized chaos. His mother Elara and Aunt Mira ladled thin porridge from a large pot that had seen better decades, while the children waged war over the heel of yesterday's bread.
Mine. Ugh, you had it yesterday.
Boys, there's enough arguing from the grown-ups. Don't add to it.
There you are. Your father and uncles have been arguing about the crops since before dawn. At this rate, they'll start throwing things.
Marcus accepted his bowl. Definitely smaller portions than last year, he noticed. The part of his mind that automatically calculated caloric intake kicked in. Grandfather Aldrich sat hunched in his chair by the cold hearth, coughing into a rag. Despite his frail appearance, his eyes still held the sharp intelligence that had kept the farm running for 4 decades.
The eastern field's wheat is yellowing again. Same as last year and the year before. The earth itself has given up.
Maybe it has. Grandfather worked this land for 40 years, his father before him. Maybe the soil is tired.
Marcus nearly choked on his porridge, not from the texture, which was charitably enthusiastic. In Chicago, he'd just studied soil depletion. The solution was so obvious it hurt to keep quiet.
What if?
He caught himself. He'd learned to be careful with his strange ideas.
What if what, lad?
What if we tried rotating what we plant in that field?
The table went silent. Even baby Kira stopped fussing. The room held its breath.
Rotating? Boy, we plant what we need to eat. You don't rotate food.
I know, Uncle, but what if we planted beans in that field this season? Beans are good for the soil. They make it stronger. Next year, the wheat would grow better.
Beans don't fill bellies like wheat.
Marcus thought about nitrogen fixation through rhizobia, bacteria being literally the foundation of sustainable agriculture, but that seemed like the sort of information that would get him accused of witchcraft.
But if the wheat grows better because of the beans?
He trailed off, seeing the skepticism around the table.
Where'd you get such strange notions, lad? You been having those odd dreams again?
Before Marcus could explain that his odd dreams were an advanced education in a parallel universe, heavy footsteps thundered on the stairs.
Morning, everyone.
His cousin Tom, Big Tom to everyone, ducked through the doorway, bending nearly in half to avoid adding a head-shaped hole to the struggling architecture. At 17, he was broader than most doorframes and taller than most trees, with innocent good nature that made people trust him.
Tom.
Marcus. The cows are real itchy again. Scratching and scratching. It's bad.
Marcus's pulse quickened. He knew what that was and how to fix it.
Tom, what if we gave them a bath in the pond? Scrub them down well?
A bath? For cattle?
The itching. It's probably mites or lice. If we scrub them with soap and dunk them in the pond, it might kill whatever's making them itch.
Soap costs coin we don't have.
We could make soap, wood ash, and fat from the next slaughter. I know how.
He caught himself before saying, "I learned it in chemistry." The family stared at him again with that mix of curiosity and concern that had become familiar. The look people gave when they weren't sure if they were witnessing genius or madness.
Well, if Marcus thinks it'll work, I'm willing to try. Can't hurt to wash the beasts, right? Might improve their smell.
Everything around here could use improved smell.
Waste of time.
But Marcus saw the hope hiding behind his gruff exterior. They were all desperate for anything that might help them survive another year, another season.
You got strange ideas, boy, but these are strange times. Strange times call for creative solutions.
He coughed again, then studied Marcus.
You know, I've been thinking, you're 18 now, Marcus, a man grown.
Marcus's stomach clenched. He knew exactly where this conversation was heading.
Leanna from the bakery's been asking after you. Sweet girl, that one. Smart, too. Marriage? When we can't even feed the mouths we already have?
That's exactly why. Another pair of hands, another family's resources. Liana's father has grain to spare most years. Good connections in the next village over.
The dual-world disorientation crashed over Marcus like a cold wave. In Chicago, his parents wanted him in college, pre-med track, solid grades. Marriage was laughable. But here, marriage wasn't about love, it was about survival.
I'm not ready.
Ready? Boy, you need to marry, Marcus. You're older than me when I married.
The words hit Marcus like a blow. Around the table, faces turned to him. Some hopeful, some resigned, all marked by hunger. Big Tom gave him an encouraging nod.
I'll think about it, grandfather. But first, let me help the cattle and the soil. Let me try to make things better.
Strange ideas. But you have the look of a man with a plan. Very well, boy. Show us these miracles. Just try not to summon any demons while you're at it.
I'll do my best to keep the demonic summoning to a minimum.
The family dispersed for the day's work. Marcus headed for the door. Big Tom fell into step beside him, ducking under every beam and door frame.
Come on then. Let's go look at those cows. Maybe you can figure out what's making them so itchy.
They spent the morning examining the cattle. Marcus tried to get close enough to see the parasites without getting kicked while Big Tom handled the work of restraining them. The sun climbed higher as they hauled water from the well, mixed ash and fat into crude soap, and scrubbed 3 uncooperative cows.
This is harder than I thought.
Everything's harder than you think until you do it. That's what makes it interesting.
By afternoon, they'd treated half the herd. Marcus's shoulders ached, his hands were raw from the rough soap, and his clothes were ruined. But several cattle had already stopped scratching.
It's working. Marcus, you're brilliant.
Evening approached. Marcus helped with the daily chores, feeding chickens, mending fences, hauling more water. The work was exhausting in a way that sitting in a chemistry class never was.
You did good work today, lad. Strange ideas, but good work.
After dinner, Marcus lingered by the dying fire while the family settled in for the night. Using his knife, he carefully shaved thin curls from a piece of dry birch bark, pressing them until he had something that might hold marks. For a writing tool, he mixed ash from the fire with a bit of tree sap, creating a crude pencil. By the dim firelight, he made symbols on the bark paper, his own system using English letters to represent the sounds of Valdris speech. He recorded which cows were washed, which showed signs of parasites, what soap mixture worked best.
No one knows. No one knows I have knowledge from another world, and no one knows how to help me use it.
He tucked the bark papers and his crude pencil into his belongings, then climbed up to his narrow straw mattress. Beside him, Cousin Tam was already asleep. The sounds of the overcrowded house settling in surrounded him. Exhaustion pulled him down into sleep, with the satisfaction that came from a day of physical accomplishment. Tomorrow they'd finish the cattle and maybe start on the eastern field. His thoughts grew fuzzy as sleep claimed him. The last thing he remembered was Big Tom's gentle snoring from across the room. Chapter 2. The Balanching Act. Marcus Chen woke for the second time that Tuesday with straw in his hair and calculus in his nightmares. The sharp electronic beep of his alarm clock dragged him back to university reality. Collision course with the underside of the bunk above, introducing his forehead to solid pine. Stars. The Chicago kind, not Valdres, burst in his vision, and the phantom ache of Big Tom's reassuring hand still warmed his shoulder. Around him, his cramped dorm room materialized with jarring completeness. Textbooks stacked precariously on the desk, his laptop still open to last night's chemistry homework, his phone buzzing with notifications from a world that had continued spinning while he'd been worrying about cattle parasites and crop rotation. The dorm smelled like stale pizza and body spray, yet he swore he could still catch a ghost of lye soap and barnyard on his clothes. A sensory postcard from Valdres. Tuesday. Introduction to Biology exam. First semester of college. Parents expecting weekly check-ins. The weight of 2 lives pressed down on him as he stumbled toward the shower, body moving on autopilot while his mind remained stuck between worlds. But standing under the steady stream of hot water, a luxury that would seem like magic in Valdres. Marcus felt something different. For the first time in months, he wasn't dreading biology class. In fact, he was almost excited. Finally, he was learning things that could help his family survive, not just creating makeshift rodent traps or swings for Tim and Tam. And being a doctor could be useful for saving lives in Valdres, especially in his family. His phone buzzed, a text from his mom.
How's the first month going? Dad says to remind you about eating actual vegetables, not just ramen. Call us this weekend. Love you, Mum.
Marcus smiled, despite his exhaustion. He pictured his parents in their small apartment, his father David opening Chen electronics repair, his mother Lee heading to the medical clinic. They'd worked double shifts for years to send him here. He grabbed his shower caddy and stepped into the hallway, where the chaos of dorm life was already in full swing. Someone's alarm blared 3 doors down. The common room smelled of burnt coffee and last night's microwaved pizza.
Marcus! Dude, thank God you're awake.
Tyler Nakamura burst from the room across the hall, hair spiking at impossible angles, eyes wide with caffeinated panic. At 18, Tyler was a first-year computer science major who lived and breathed streaming metrics.
My stream setup crashed again. Main rig is blue screening, and I have a sponsored stream in 2 hours.
Did you try turning it off and on again?
Of course Wait, let me try a full power cycle.
Tyler vanished.
Morning, Marcus.
Jake Martinez emerged from the room next door, carrying a mug that read, Future Doctor. Unlike Tyler's chaos, Jake moved with the precision of someone who'd planned his life in 5-year increments.
Big day?
Jake noted the stack of flashcards.
Intro bio review. You ready? You've seemed pretty confident.
You've been different since semester started. More confident, more, I don't know, like you found your groove. I was thinking maybe you didn't like me at first, but now you seem...
Before Marcus could answer, Tyler reappeared.
It worked! Marcus, you're a genius! How do you always know exactly what to try?
An hour later, Marcus slid into his usual middle-row seat for Introduction to Biology.
Panic level?
Surprisingly low.
Good morning! Before the exam, quick review. Why did traditional farming communities rotate crops long before understanding the science?
Half the class stared blankly. Marcus's hand shot up.
Mr. Chen?
Marcus explained rhizobia, root nodules, atmospheric nitrogen words flowing with a confidence that surprised even him. Heads turned, Jake looked like Marcus had started speaking Elvish.
Excellent. And why was that critical for pre-industrial agriculture?
Marcus outlined soil depletion and subsistence yields. Harrison nodded approvingly. The review morphed into an impromptu Q&A, Marcus fielding questions on mites, saponification, and nutrient cycles like he'd spent his childhood on a research farm instead of a Chicago public school. The exam felt almost trivial. When it ended, Jake leaned over.
Who are you and what have you done with Marcus? You were kind of depressed the first month, right?
Been watching a lot of educational YouTube.
Even he winced at the lameness.
Text me after Cam, yeah? We can walk back together.
Deal.
2 weeks into October, Marcus Chen was starting to think he might actually have this college thing figured out.
Dude, you're like a completely different person than you were a month ago.
Tyler was sprawled across Marcus's desk chair while Jake studied at his own desk. Tyler had basically moved into their room since his roommate had dropped out.
Different how? I think about things differently, I guess.
You know how some people are book smart but have no practical sense? You're the opposite. It's like you understand how things work in the real world.
I try to think about how chemistry works in the real world.
That's exactly what I mean. You should join my streams sometimes. I need someone with insight as a voice of reason. Chat loves it when I have guests who can think strategically.
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
Consider it, man. You've got this way of breaking down problems that would be perfect for content.
Before Tyler could elaborate further, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom, and he felt the familiar mix of love and guilt.
Hey, Mom.
Marcus, how are things going? You sound tired.
Studying. Everything's fine.
Good, good. Your father says to ask about your nutrition again. And you're still not seeing those strange worlds, right? You know, like when you were little.
Marcus felt ice in his veins. The room seemed to tilt, and suddenly he was 6 years old again, crying to his parents about why the house kept changing, why different people kept calling themselves his family.
Marcus, are you there?
Yeah, Mom. No, nothing like that. Regular dreams about failing chemistry. I was a confused kid back then. You know how children are?
Of course. I worry sometimes. You seem so distant lately.
I'm fine, really. Adjusting to college life.
After hanging up, Marcus sat quietly for a moment, trying to push down the memories of those early years when he tried to explain Valdris to his parents.
Everything okay?
Yeah, Mom being Mom.
You know what? We've been studying our asses off all week. Let's go out today. Do something normal for once.
What did you have in mind?
There's that new action movie everyone's talking about. We could catch the afternoon showing. Grab some food that doesn't come from a microwave.
I'm in, but I've got to be back by 6 for a stream. Scheduled content, you know?
And so the three of them found themselves in a darkened theater, sharing overpriced popcorn and watching explosions that seemed absurdly simple compared to Marcus's recent concerns. Afterward, as they walked back toward campus, Tyler checked his phone and groaned.
Guys, I need to get back. Stream starts in an hour, and I haven't even set up.
Dude, you are no fun.
Content creation is serious business. Besides, you two aren't exactly party people anyway.
Fair point. I was going to go back and study more anatomy anyway.
As they headed back to the dorm, Marcus felt grateful for this simple afternoon. These moments of normal college life reminded him that he was still 18, still figuring things out, still allowed to be a student sometimes. Late that evening, studying in the library's quiet corner, Marcus let his mind wander to Valdris. The familiar pull of sleep was approaching, and with it, the transition to his other life. To seeing if Liana would be at the village well tomorrow morning. The thought surprised him with its warmth. When had he started thinking about her so often? Marcus woke to the sound of laughter and music drifting through the thin walls of the farmhouse. For a moment, he couldn't place the unfamiliar joy in those voices. Then he remembered. Today was the harvest festival.
Marcus, get down here. The whole village is gathering.
Marcus rolled off his straw mattress, noting with satisfaction that his body felt strong and healthy. The past 2 weeks had been a revelation. The cattle treatment had worked perfectly. Not a single cow was scratching anymore.
Coming.
Downstairs, the farmhouse was bustling with preparation. His aunts were packing what food they had left for the festival, while his uncles debated which of them would represent the family in the traditional strength competitions.
There he is, our young innovator.
Grandfather? Aye.
Don't be modest, lad. Half the village wants to talk to you today. Young Liana from the bakery has been asking after you all week.
She's a good girl. Smart, too.
And her father's bakery does well even in lean years. Good connections with the grain merchants.
Can we maybe get to the festival before you marry me off?
The walk to the village square revealed the entire community transformed. Colorful banners hung between buildings, long tables groaned under the weight of contributed food, and someone had set up a small stage where traveling musicians were tuning their instruments.
Marcus.
A familiar voice called out. Marcus turned to see Liana approaching, and his heart did something complicated in his chest.
Liana, you look. The festival looks wonderful.
Smooth. I can see why all the girls talk about your silver tongue.
They talk about me?
Marcus, half the village has been talking about you since you cured the Hendersons' cattle plague. Old Henrik swears you saved his entire herd.
It wasn't plague, just parasites. Basic soap and...
I heard what it was. Where did you learn to think like that?
I think about problems differently, I guess. Look for patterns.
Patterns. Like how you suggested my father adjust his bread recipe to account for the humidity changes this season.
Did it work?
His bread has been perfect for 2 weeks straight. My grandpa's asking him for his secret. You see connections other people miss. It's remarkable.
Before Marcus could figure out how to respond to that, Big Tom appeared beside them with his usual devastating lack of subtlety.
Marcus, there you are. They're starting the strength competitions and... Oh, hello, Liana.
Hello, Tom. Are you entering the competitions?
Obviously. Though I was hoping Marcus might try the puzzle contests. He's got a clever mind for solving things.
I'd like to see that. Would you walk with me? I want to show you something.
As they moved away from the crowd, Marcus found himself falling into easy conversation with Liana. She asked intelligent questions about his ideas for improving village life and offered insights that showed she'd been thinking deeply about the same problems.
The eastern fields aren't the only issue. My father says grain prices have been fluctuating wildly. Something about problems with trade routes.
What kind of problems?
Rumors mostly. Caravans going missing. Some traders say there's been trouble near Thornwick, but nobody wants to talk specifics.
What kind of trouble?
I don't know, but my father's had to source grain from farther away, and the merchants seem nervous. But let's not talk about troubling rumors today. Show me this mind everyone's talking about.
They returned to the festival, where Marcus found himself dragged into various competitions and demonstrations. To his surprise, he enjoyed it. The puzzles were engaging, the company was warm, and Liana's presence made everything seem brighter. As evening approached and the musicians began playing for dancing, Liana caught Marcus's hand.
In with me.
I'm not good at dancing.
Neither am I. We'll figure it out together.
They did figure it out, moving together in the simple village dances while the music swirled around them. Marcus found himself thinking that this moment, this girl, this community might be worth fighting for.
Marcus, I'd like to see you again, outside of festivals and emergencies.
I'd like that too.
As the evening wound down and families began gathering their belongings, Marcus felt a contentment he hadn't experienced in either world. Back in his narrow bed, listening to the familiar sounds of the farmhouse settling for the night, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before: genuine balance. In Chicago, he was excelling academically, his roommates were becoming real friends, and his parents were proud of his progress. In Valdres, he was gaining respect as a problem solver. His family was eating better than they had in years, and Liana made him think about possibilities he'd never considered. For the first time since his world switching began, Marcus started making long-term plans for both lives. Maybe he could pursue agricultural science in college, legitimately research the solutions his Valdres family needed. The only shadow on his contentment was Liana's mention of trouble near Thornwick. But surely that was typical medieval political squabbling. Nothing that would affect a small farming village like Millhaven. As sleep claimed him, Marcus felt more confident than he ever had. He'd figured out how to live in both worlds successfully. What could possibly go wrong? Outside, far beyond the village boundaries, a thin line of smoke rose against the autumn sky, too distant to see, too early to cause alarm, but growing larger each night. The comfortable balance Marcus had fought so hard to achieve was about to shatter completely. But for tonight, he slept peacefully, dreaming of harvest festivals and chemistry labs, of Liana's laugh and Tyler's discoveries, unaware that his two worlds were about to collide in ways he never could have imagined. Chapter 3. Smoke on the Horizon. The morning started like any other in Millhaven, with Marcus checking the cattle for parasites and helping his grandfather mend the fence posts. The improved feed rotation was showing results. The cows looked healthier, and milk production had increased enough that his Aunt Mara smiled when she counted the morning's yield.
Strange ideas or not, these beasts haven't looked this good since before the drought.
Marcus was calculating how much surplus milk they might have for the next market day when he heard the commotion from the village center. Shouting, but not the usual kind. Not children playing or merchants haggling. This was different, urgent, afraid.
Marcus! Hey, Marcus!
Marcus called to his cousin, who was struggling to lift a stubborn fence post.
Tom, you hear that?
Tom straightened, his massive frame making the heavy wooden post look like a stick. He cocked his head like a confused ox.
Trouble sounds. Go look?
We'll both go.
They dropped their tools and jogged toward the village square, where a crowd had gathered around 4 figures Marcus didn't recognize. As they pushed through the cluster of neighbors, he caught sight of the strangers, travel-worn, filthy, and hollow-eyed with exhaustion. Their clothes were torn, their faces gaunt, and one woman clutched a bundle that took Marcus a moment to realize was a sleeping child. The 4th refugee, a middle-aged woman with graying hair, stood slightly apart from the others, watching the crowd with an oddly cheerful expression that seemed completely inappropriate for the circumstances.
Start from the beginning, travelers. Slowly now.
The tallest of the 3, a man with prematurely gray hair and a scar running from his left temple to his jaw, took a shaky breath.
My name is Faris of Thornwick, or was, before Thornwick ceased to be. We've walked for 9 days to bring word of what's coming.
A murmur rippled through the crowd. Thornwick was 2 days' hard ride to the east, a prosperous town known for its skilled weavers and fair markets.
Farming?
Elder Oldwin's voice carried a note Marcus had never heard before. Fear. Faris's companion, an older woman with steel-gray hair, stepped forward.
The wizard Malachar has turned his eyes westward. His army struck Thornwick without warning, but that's not the worst of it. The stories are true. All of them.
Marcus felt his stomach drop. Stories? What stories? In all his time in Valdris, he'd heard tales of distant kingdoms and petty wars between lords, but nothing about wizards.
What stories?
Asked Marta, the innkeeper's wife, though her voice suggested she already knew.
He commands the elements themselves. We saw fire rain from clear skies. The earth opened to swallow our guardsmen, and the dead rose to serve him.
Several more villagers crossed themselves, and Marcus heard someone mutter, "Blessed Maker, preserve us," behind him. His mind raced, trying to process what he was hearing. Magic. Magic was real.
Surely you speak in metaphors. Men can seem to command elements through clever artifice.
No artifice. I watched the wizard stride through our town square. The fountain stones cracked at his word. When Town Elder Morris raised his sword against him, the wizard turned the air to ice around the man, froze him solid where he stood, then shattered him like glass with a gesture.
Frozen solid? Like water in winter, but in summer.
Exactly so, large fellow. And that was merely his greeting. What followed?
He trailed off, unable to continue. The 3rd refugee, a boy who couldn't be more than 14, finally spoke. His voice cracked with exhaustion and trauma.
General Kuroff leads his vanguard. He's the one who struck Thornwick. He froze Morris. And there's whispers of others. A woman who commands beasts. Another who...
The boy's voice broke entirely.
Easy, lad. You've done well to bring us warning.
Elder Aldwin's gaze turned to the 4th refugee, the woman who had remained silent.
And you, good woman? What tale do you bring?
The woman stepped forward with a bright, almost cheerful smile.
Celestine from Rockwall, darling. Terrible business, all of it. I was visiting Thornwick when the attack came. Fortunate to escape with these brave souls, wasn't it?
Marcus frowned. Something about her manner struck him as wrong. The others were clearly devastated, haunted by what they'd witnessed. But this Celestine spoke with the casual cheerfulness of someone discussing a mildly inconvenient rainstorm. Marcus's grandfather, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Despite his age, his voice carried the authority of someone who had lived through hard times.
How long do we have?
General Koroth's forces were still burning the outer farms when we fled. 9 days passed. If they move as they did toward Thornwick, perhaps a fortnight before the first scouts reach your borders, maybe less.
The crowd erupted in frightened chatter. Marcus heard fragments of conversation, arguments about fleeing versus fighting, debates over where to go, speculation about whether the warnings were even true. But his mind had latched onto something else entirely. Magic was real. All his careful plans about introducing modern farming techniques and business practices suddenly seemed naive. How do you compete with someone who can command the elements themselves?
Marcus, you look like you've seen a ghost.
Maybe I have.
Then louder,
Tom, we need to get back to the family. Grandfather will want to discuss this with everyone.
As they pushed back through the crowd, Marcus caught fragments of the refugees' continued testimony. Details about the speed of Malachar's conquest, whispers about those with the spark fleeing ahead of his armies. Marcus glanced back at the refugees one more time and noticed something that made his skin crawl. While Faris and the others were surrounded by concerned villagers offering food and shelter, Celestine stood alone at the edge of the square, humming softly to herself and watching the crowd with that same cheerful expression.
Lovely village you have here, darling.
When they reached the farm, Marcus found his extended family gathered in the main room, having already heard the news from neighbors. His grandfather sat in his carved chair, the one reserved for family councils, while aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the space around him.
13 souls under this roof, 40 acres of good land, livestock that's finally prospering. Do we abandon all of it on the word of strangers?
Strangers who've walked 9 days to warn us. If even half of what they say is true.
If it's true, then running won't save us. A man who can command magic will find us wherever we go.
What do you think, Marcus? You've been quiet since you returned from the village.
All eyes turned to him. These people looked to him for guidance, had grown to trust his strange ideas because they produced results. But how could he advise them about something so far beyond his experience?
I think that we need more information. The refugees spoke of Malachar having generals, of organized armies. That suggests structure, strategy, patterns we might understand, but they spoke of magic I can't comprehend. If we stay, we might lose everything. If we flee, we definitely lose the farm, but we might save our lives. The question is, whether we trust these strangers enough to abandon our home.
Marcus goes, I go. Simple as that.
It's not that simple, Tom.
Is for me. You've never steered us wrong yet. Made the cows healthy, helped the crops grow better. Yeah, that rodent trap last year was a bust, but it was something. If you think we should run from this wizard fellow, then we run.
Several family members nodded agreement, and Marcus felt the weight of their trust settling on his shoulders. In his modern life, his biggest responsibility was passing his college courses. Here, 13 people were prepared to abandon their home based on his judgment.
I need to think, and we need to hear more. Elder Aldwin will want to question the refugees further. Let's learn what we can before making such a momentous decision.
Wisdom speaks through caution. We'll send you and Henrik to gather more details. The rest of us will begin preparations. If we must leave, we'll need to decide what we can carry and what we must abandon.
As the family dispersed to their tasks, Marcus stepped outside into the afternoon air. The sky was clear, the fields green and promising. It looked like any other day in Valdris, but everything had changed. Magic was real. A dark wizard was conquering kingdoms to the east, and somehow Marcus was going to have to figure out how to keep his family safe in a world that was far stranger and more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. He thought about his chemistry textbook back in his Chicago dorm room, about Tyler's complaints about his latest speedrun attempts, about the comfortable predictability of his college routine. All of that seemed impossibly distant now.
Strange ideas. I'm going to need stranger ideas than I've ever had.
The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of smoke, not from cook fires or forge work, but something else. Something that reminded him of the refugees' hollow eyes and the terror in their voices when they spoke of General Koroth. Marcus looked toward the eastern horizon and wondered how much time they really had left. Late that evening, after the family had finally settled into uneasy sleep, Marcus sat by the dying embers of the fire with his crude writing materials. He carefully shaved thin curls from a dry piece of birch bark, layering them until he had something resembling paper. Using his makeshift pencil of ash and tree sap, he began making marks, recording the refugees' words, the family's reactions, his own churning thoughts about this world that had suddenly become far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined.
Day 37 since harvest. Magic is real. Malachar comes. Family debates fight.
He paused, staring at the crude symbols that only he could read. In his modern world, he could research anything, discuss his fears with friends, seek advice from professors. Here, he was alone with knowledge that might save lives, if he could figure out how to use it.
No one knows. No one knows I live in two worlds, and no one knows if I'm losing my mind.
Chapter 4. Digital Battlegrounds. Marcus stared at his chemistry textbook, but the words kept shifting into images of fire raining from clear skies and earth swallowing guardsmen whole. Every time he tried to focus on molecular bonds, his mind wandered to a wizard who could freeze men solid and shatter them like glass.
Dude, you've been staring at that same page for like 20 minutes.
Tyler's voice cut through Marcus's spiraling thoughts. His hallmate sprawled across Jake's desk chair, laptop balanced precariously on his knees, headset hanging around his neck like some kind of technological jewelry.
Sorry, just having trouble concentrating.
Yeah, I can see that. You're being weird ever since you woke up. It's like you're worried about something but can't talk about it.
Marcus felt a familiar pang of isolation. Tyler was right. He worried about something he absolutely couldn't talk about. How do you explain terror when magic is real and a dark wizard is conquering kingdoms in a parallel world where your family lives?
Where's Jake?
Library. Again. That guy studies more than anyone I've ever met. Actually, perfect timing. I need a favor.
What kind of favor?
My duo partner for tonight's tournament bailed on me. Food poisoning or something equally inconvenient for my content schedule. I need someone who doesn't suck.
Marcus looked at the screen, which showed what appeared to be a complex real-time strategy game with multiple armies positioned across a detailed battlefield.
Tyler, I don't really play.
It's not about playing, it's about thinking. Look, see how this team coordinates their units? It's all about resource management, timing, and adapting to unexpected tactics. You've been doing that kind of thinking with your bio homework.
Despite himself, Marcus found his attention caught by the strategic elements on screen. Small units maneuvering around terrain, supply lines stretching between bases, scouts gathering information about enemy movements.
Look, I know you must have played StarCraft or Age of Empires or maybe Warcraft. This isn't that different. It's new and has a good prize pool. I know we can't win, but it's hot content right now and I need to catch this wind.
Marcus nodded slowly. The strategic elements reminded him of decisions he'd made in Valdris, managing resources, timing attacks, reading enemy movements.
Class, I'll owe you a huge favor, and I'm really good at finding information online when people need it.
That caught Marcus's interest. Tyler's research abilities were genuinely impressive. He could track down obscure gaming strategies, historical references, even academic papers when he needed background for his streaming content.
Okay, but I'm warning you, I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's fine. I'll handle the micromanagement. You just think big picture strategy. Tell me where to send troops, when to attack, that sort of thing. I get tunnel vision when I'm focused on one aspect of a game.
An hour later, Marcus began to understand why Tyler took gaming so seriously. The strategic complexity genuinely engaged him, requiring constant adaptation to enemy movements and resource management that felt familiar from his work in Valdris.
Okay, they're massing forces on our eastern flank. Standard pincer movement. What do you think?
Marcus studied the battlefield display.
What if we don't contest it? Pull our forces back, make them overextend, then hit their supply lines.
Ooh, I like that. Defensive withdrawal into counterattack. Classic.
Tyler began repositioning their armies according to Marcus's suggestion. For the first 2 matches, their strategy worked reasonably well. Marcus found himself thinking about terrain advantages, resource allocation, and timing in ways that felt surprisingly natural. Then they ran into a team that played completely differently.
What the hell are they doing? This makes no sense. They're spreading their forces out randomly, attacking multiple targets at once. It's completely inefficient.
Marcus watched the enemy's seemingly chaotic movements and felt a chill of recognition.
It's not random. Look at the pattern.
What pattern? They're not trying to win pitched battles. They're disrupting our resource gathering, hitting our scouts, keeping us from getting information.
And forcing us to spread our defenses thin. We keep trying to predict their next major attack, but they're not planning one. They're just wearing us down.
It's like they're playing a completely different game than we are.
They lost. Badly.
Okay, that was actually brilliant. Unconventional, but brilliant. I've never seen anything like that approach.
Have you encountered tactics like that before?
Not in my elo. Most people suck and play because of my content. Warriors of Waldara won this week's game rotation among my subs, but you know what? I bet there are communities discussing this kind of thing. Unconventional tactics, asymmetric warfare theory.
Asymmetric warfare?
Yeah, when one side uses completely different methods than the other, like guerrilla tactics versus traditional military. Look at this, there's a whole subreddit dedicated to unconventional RTS strategies.
Marcus leaned forward, reading over Tyler's shoulder as he scrolled through discussion threads about irregular tactics, resource denial, psychological warfare in gaming contexts.
And check this out. Discord servers where people analyze historical military tactics and adapt them for strategy games. Some of these discussions are incredibly detailed.
Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he spotted thread titles about defending against superior forces, using terrain advantages, disrupting enemy supply chains. The discussions were focused on gaming, but the underlying principles...
This is fascinating.
Right? I had no idea there were so many people thinking deeply about this stuff. Want me to send you some links? Might help with your strategic thinking for future matches.
Yeah, definitely.
Marcus watched Tyler navigate between different communities, each dedicated to analyzing tactics and strategy from various angles. The internet's ability to connect people with shared interests never stopped amazing him.
Marcus, there you are. I've been looking for you.
Jake's voice echoed from the hallway before he appeared in their doorway, carrying an armload of library books and wearing an expression of academic concern.
How was the library?
Productive, but that's not why I'm here. Why didn't you come to study group yesterday?
Marcus felt the familiar weight of living two lives pressing down on him. In Valdris, he'd dealt with magical threats and evacuation orders. Here, he was supposed to be a focused pre-med student.
I've been having some family issues. Back home. It's complicated.
Oh, family problems? That sucks, man.
Yeah, they're dealing with some difficult circumstances. I'm worried about them.
Well, if you need help with anything, studying, whatever, just ask. That's what friends are for.
Yeah, man. And hey, if you ever need to research anything, family legal issues, medical questions, whatever, I'm really good at finding information online. Seriously, there's a community for everything.
After Jake left to actually study and Tyler departed to edit his gaming footage, Marcus sat alone in his room, staring at his chemistry textbook again. The words still wouldn't stick, his mind still pulled toward images of magical armies and impossible threats. But Tyler's casual mention of research communities had planted an idea. If Marcus was going to help his Valdris family survive what was coming, he needed information. And Tyler had shown him that the internet held people discussing exactly the kind of strategic thinking he might need. He opened his laptop and began typing, historical defense strategies, small forces. The first search results weren't exactly what he needed, but they were a start. And Tyler was right there, really was a community for everything. Even, apparently, for preparing to fight dark wizards, if you knew how to frame the questions properly. Chapter 5. The Evacuation Order. 3 days after the refugees' arrival, the royal escort appeared on the horizon like a line of steel beneath the morning sun. Marcus spotted them first from his position mending the barn roof, a column of mounted soldiers in gleaming mail, their banners snapping in the wind. Behind them, more refugees trudged forward, perhaps 200 souls with their cattle and possessions strapped to weary backs. Even from a distance, he could see they moved with the disciplined precision of professional military.
Tom, riders approaching, a lot of them.
Tom shaded his eyes with one massive hand, squinting toward the east.
Those ain't bandits. Too shiny. Too orderly-like.
Marcus scrambled down from the roof, his mind racing. Royal soldiers didn't visit farm villages without serious purpose. Given the timing, this could only concern the warnings brought by the refugees from Thornwick. Relief flooded through him. Perhaps he wouldn't have to convince the townspeople to dig trenches and build barriers after all. The burden of defending their worthless village against a magical army might not fall on his shoulders alone. By the time the escort reached Millhaven Square, half the village had gathered to meet them. Marcus and his family clustered with their neighbors, watching as 20 mounted soldiers formed a disciplined formation around a central figure who commanded immediate attention. She was tall, perhaps 30 years of age, with auburn hair braided in a practical warrior's knot. Her leather armor was well maintained, but showed the scars of actual use, and a silver pendant bearing a sunburst symbol hung at her throat.
I am Sister Cora Brightshield of the Order of the Dawn's Light. I serve as both military chaplain and evacuation coordinator for His Majesty's forces.
She gestured toward a short man in gleaming armor who was talking with another soldier in more standard gear.
Commander Kane commands the provincial soldiers under Lord Hammond. By royal decree and divine guidance, all settlements within 50 leagues of the eastern border are to be evacuated immediately.
Marcus's worries disappeared. They wouldn't have to defend their village against magical forces. The decision was being made for them. A murmur of distress rippled through the villagers. Elder Aldwin stepped forward, his aged frame somehow managing to project dignity despite his obvious fear.
Sister Brightshield, we are honored by your presence, but surely there has been some mistake. Millhaven lies far from any border conflicts.
No mistake, Honored Elder. The threat we face transcends traditional boundaries. The Dark Wizard Malakar's advance has accelerated beyond our initial calculations. Intelligence suggests his forward elements may reach this region within days rather than weeks.
No one should fear. We will evacuate everyone safely behind the capital's strong walls.
The reassurance helped somewhat, but Marcus could read the pain on everyone's faces. Abandoning everything they had built would hurt deeply.
Where are we to go? We have businesses here, families, livestock. The capital city of Drakmor offers sanctuary behind its walls and magical protections. Wagons will be provided for essential belongings and those unable to walk. The journey will take 18 days, perhaps 20 depending on the size of our column.
Marcus's grandfather pushed through the crowd, his walking stick tapping against the cobblestones. Despite his age, his voice carried the weight of village leadership.
And if we choose to remain, this is our home, sister. Some of us have roots here deeper than royal decrees.
Honored grandfather, I have seen what Malakar's forces leave behind. Empty villages are the kindest fate. I would not wish the alternatives upon anyone under the light's protection.
How long do we have to prepare?
Marcus found himself asking, surprised by his own boldness in addressing such an obviously important official.
You have 2 days to gather what you can carry or load onto the provided transport. We depart at dawn on the 3rd day, with or without stragglers. The kingdom's survival depends upon maintaining schedule.
Over the next hour, Sister Cora and her soldiers outlined the evacuation procedures with military efficiency. Each family would be assigned space in wagons for essential supplies. Livestock could be driven along, but would likely slow the column. Personal belongings had to fit strict weight limits. As the crowd dispersed to begin their frantic preparations, Marcus lingered near the village square. His mind buzzed with logistical concerns. How to preserve their improved farming techniques, what supplies would be most valuable in a prolonged siege, how to maintain his family's unity during such upheaval. More immediately, he faced a problem he'd never encountered. How could he learn more about their destination, about the resources available in Drakmor, about anything that might help his family survive when he couldn't read the local language? Another thought nagged at Marcus's mind: why would nobles help refugees? Sending troops and funding expensive evacuation expeditions, refugees meant disruptions to their comfortable cities and palaces. Were the nobles of this realm better than current world leaders? There had to be some catch. This didn't align with human nature as Marcus understood it. That evening, while his family sorted through their possessions in a flurry of difficult decisions, Marcus sat by the fire working on a project that had occupied his thoughts since the evacuation announcement. Marcus pulled out his familiar supplies, the birch bark papers he'd been making for weeks and his crude ash and sap pencil. What had started as a way to track cattle treatments had become his method for recording anything important that happened in Valdris.
What in the light's name are you doing, Marcus?
Big Tom plopped down beside him, watching with confused fascination as Marcus carefully formed symbols on his bark paper.
Making marks that mean words, like capturing speech so you can look at it later.
Capturing speech? That's magic, that is.
Not magic, just. You know how you can look at tracks in mud and know what animal passed that way?
Sure. That's hunting.
This is like tracks for words. See, this mark means Tom, and this one means Marcus, and these together mean Big Tom helps Marcus.
Those scratches mean all that?
If you know how to read them, yes. And I'm going to teach you Valdirian when I learn it in Drakmor. It'll be more important in a huge city.
I'll try if you say so.
Their conversation was interrupted by a shadow falling across Marcus's work. He looked up to find Sister Cora standing beside their fire, her expression unreadable.
May I approach?
She asked formally. Despite her obvious authority, she waited for his grandfather's nod before settling beside them on a wooden stool.
My men and I are visiting each household for any unusual sightings.
She explained with a reassuring smile, though Marcus sensed she was also evaluating them, perhaps checking for potential fugitives or agents, but without being threatening about it. Her gaze fell on Marcus's bark paper and primitive writing materials. For a long moment, she said nothing, simply studying the crude symbols he'd created.
Remarkable. I have served the crown for 12 years, travelled from the northern forests to the southern deserts, and I have never seen such innovation from someone of...
She paused diplomatically.
Someone from a farming village with no learning?
Someone without formal education in the scribal arts. Tell me, Marcus of Millhaven, where did you learn to create writing materials?
Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He'd gotten careless, let his modern knowledge show too obviously.
I wondered how marks could preserve words, like Elder Aldwin sometimes shows us on trade papers, so I tried to make my own.
The binding agent in this marking tool shows sophisticated understanding of material properties. And this writing surface, you've essentially created parchment using available resources. Most trained scribes would struggle to produce anything so functional with forest materials. The symbols themselves are equally intriguing. They seem to follow consistent patterns, as if you've developed your own system of notation.
Marcus felt Big Tom shift beside him, probably wondering why this important military leader was so interested in meaningless scratches.
It seemed logical. Each sound should have its own mark.
Indeed. Can you demonstrate? Write something for me to see.
Marcus hesitated, then carefully formed the words, Sister Cora helps Marcus learn. He pointed to each symbol as he spoke the corresponding sounds.
You've invented a phonetic writing system, without any exposure to existing scripts. Marcus, do you understand how extraordinary this is?
Is it? It seemed like the obvious approach.
Perhaps obvious to you. Valdirian is based on flourishes, each representing complete sounds humans make. I have studied at the capital's academies, trained alongside scholars and scribes. What you've accomplished here in an evening would be considered advanced theoretical work in academic circles. When we reach Drakmor, I believe certain individuals would be very interested to meet you. The capital has resources for developing unusual talents.
After Sister Cora departed to continue her rounds of the village families, Big Tom turned to Marcus with his characteristic directness.
So, are you some kind of scholar or something? Because if you are, you've been doing a right good job of pretending to be a farmer.
I'm a farmer, Tom. Just one who thinks too much.
Well, thinking or not, if we're going to this Drakmor place, I'm going with you. Family sticks together, and you're the closest thing to a brother I've got.
You don't have to.
Already decided. You helped our crops grow better, made the animals healthier, came up with that soap idea that made Aunt Mara actually smile. Far as I'm concerned, you got more sense than the rest of us combined. Besides, sounds like this, Drakmor Place might have need for someone who can think of strange ideas. And if you're going to be thinking, might as well have someone around to handle the heavy lifting.
As the evening wore on, Marcus's family made their decisions about what to take and what to leave behind. Arguments erupted over the value of various possessions, tears were shed over mementos that couldn't be preserved, but gradually a consensus emerged. They would go to Drakmore. All 13 family members, plus Big Tom, plus whatever livestock they could manage on the journey. It meant abandoning the farm that had been in the family for 3 generations, but as his grandfather put it, land is only valuable if you're alive to work it.
We have to slaughter the oldest cow. She won't make the journey, and if she dies on the road, they won't stop for us to butcher her.
The meat will rot on the way, son. There's no time to dry it properly, and we can't eat it all.
I think we have to sell everything when we get there just to survive. If we have spare food or something to sell, we might suffer less.
What makes you think it will be so bad?
Let's just be prepared. Also, we can preserve the meat with salt and herbs and spices. I heard about the technique from a trader. I was drying some herbs to sell, but we'll have to use them for ourselves now.
Later that night, as Marcus lay in his bed trying to process the day's events, he thought about Sister Cora's words. In Drakmore, there would be scholars, academies, people who might appreciate his unusual talents. Maybe this forced journey would provide opportunities he couldn't have imagined. Maybe his modern knowledge could be useful in ways beyond farming improvements. Maybe the capital would offer resources for fighting back against threats like Malachar. Outside his window, he could hear the night sounds of a village preparing for exodus. Muffled conversations, the creak of wagon wheels, livestock being gathered and sorted. Tomorrow would bring more preparations, more difficult decisions, more uncertainty. But tonight, Marcus allowed himself to feel cautious optimism. Sister Cora had seen something in his crude writing experiment, something she called extraordinary. In his modern world, he was just another struggling college freshman. Here, apparently, he might be something more. He touched the bark paper where it lay beside his bed, feeling the rough texture of his improvised creation. Such a simple thing, really, marks that meant words. But Sister Cora's reaction suggested it might be the key to opportunities he couldn't yet imagine. The evacuation was forcing them toward an uncertain future, but for the first time since the refugees' arrival, Marcus wondered if that future might hold possibilities as well as dangers. 2 days, he reminded himself, 2 days to prepare for a journey that would change everything. He was ready to find out what lay beyond the horizon. Chapter 6: Research and Consequences. Marcus pushed through the heavy glass doors of the university library, his backpack stuffed with notebooks and a growing sense of urgency. 2 days had passed since the evacuation order in Valdris, and he'd been thinking constantly about Sister Cora's mention of the capital's academies and resources. But first, he needed answers to questions that had gnawed at him since the refugees' arrival. If he was going to meet scholars in Drakmore, he wanted to be prepared with the right questions. Ones that might help him understand this strange world he'd been living in without knowing he could research it. The library's main floor bustled with the usual mix of stressed students and caffeine-fueled academic desperation. Marcus found an empty table in the reference section and spread out his materials, notebooks, pens, and a carefully constructed list of questions he'd been developing. At the top of his page, written in neat print, "Questions for Sister Cora." Below that, a growing list that represented months of accumulated curiosity about Valdris.
Astronomy. Do they know constellations? Is this the same sky? Calendar systems. How do they measure time and seasons? Geography. Are there maps? What do they know about distant lands? History. How long have kingdoms like Drakmore existed? Magic. Is it recent? Ancient? How does it work? Literacy. Who can read? What do they read? Technology. Why no advancement? What prevents progress? Agriculture. What techniques do they use? What could I teach? Medicine. Do they understand disease? Sanitation?
Marcus stared at his list, realizing how much he didn't know about the world he'd been living in part-time for years. He'd been so focused on immediate problems, helping his family survive, improving their crops, dealing with daily life, that he'd never thought to ask bigger questions. He pulled out his laptop and began searching for information that might help him understand what to expect from a medieval capital city. Academic databases, historical texts, anything that might give him insight into how knowledge was preserved and transmitted in pre-industrial societies. Marcus found himself deep in articles about the Library of Alexandria, monastic scriptoriums, the role of clergy in preserving knowledge during the Dark Ages. He took notes about how information was organized, how scholars communicated across distances, what kinds of questions would seem natural for someone from a farming village to ask. A paper on astronomical knowledge in medieval Europe caught his attention. He scanned through sections on celestial navigation, calendar systems, the preservation of Greek astronomical texts. If Valdris followed similar patterns, Sister Cora might know about star charts, seasonal calculations, maybe even basic navigation techniques. Scientific innovation in pre-industrial societies led him down another research rabbit hole. Marcus read about agricultural innovations, early chemistry, the gradual development of metallurgy and engineering. Some of this could explain why Valdris seemed technologically stagnant. If magic provided solutions to problems that normally drove innovation, why would anyone bother developing alternatives? But that raised another question. How long had magic existed in that world? Was it recent, like Malachar's rise, or had it been shaping their society for centuries? Marcus added more questions to his list.
When did magic first appear in their world? Do they have any written records of history without magic? How does magic affect their understanding of natural phenomena? Are there scholars who study magic systematically?
He was deep in a fascinating article about the role of monasteries in preserving knowledge when a familiar voice interrupted his concentration.
Marcus, what are you doing here?
Marcus looked up to find Jake standing beside his table, carrying a stack of textbooks and wearing an expression of surprise mixed with suspicion.
Research for a project.
What kind of project? This looks like medieval history, not pre-med coursework.
It's interdisciplinary, looking at historical approaches to medicine and agriculture.
Marcus, we need to talk.
About what?
About the fact that you missed Dr. Peterson's lab yesterday, the one where we covered practical applications of organic synthesis, the one that's going to be on next week's exam.
Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd completely forgotten about the lab. In Valdris, he'd been dealing with evacuation preparations, trying to help his family decide what to pack and what to leave behind. The idea of a chemistry lab had seemed impossibly distant.
I was sick.
Which wasn't entirely untrue. He had felt nauseous thinking about leaving the farm.
Sick. Right, the same way you were 6 when you missed Professor Williams' review session and distracted by family issues when you didn't show up for our study group. Marcus, I'm worried about you. Your grades are slipping. You're missing important classes. And now I find you in the library researching medieval history instead of studying for exams.
My grades aren't that bad.
Dr. Peterson specifically asked me if I knew what was going on with you.
What did you tell him?
That you were dealing with some personal issues, but that you're normally a dedicated student. But Marcus, I can't keep covering for you if you're not going to help yourself.
They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the ambient noise of the library keyboards clicking, pages turning, the distant hum of the ventilation system. Marcus stared at his list of questions for Sister Cora and felt the familiar weight of living 2 lives.
Look, I don't know what's really going on with you, but whatever it is, you can't let it destroy your future. Your parents sacrificed everything to get you here.
I know that.
Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're more interested in medieval research than modern medicine.
Marcus closed his notebook, covering his list of questions.
It's not that simple.
Then explain it to me. Help me understand what's so important about astronomical knowledge in pre-industrial societies that it's worth failing chemistry over.
How could Marcus explain that understanding astronomical knowledge in pre-industrial societies might literally be a matter of life and death for his family in Valdris? How could he say that his medieval research was more urgent than his modern education because he was the only person who could help bridge the gap between worlds?
I can't. I wish I could, but I can't explain it.
Jake studied him for a long moment, and Marcus could see the frustration and genuine concern warring in his roommate's expression.
Okay, I don't understand, but Marcus, you have to make a choice. Either recommit to your education here or accept that you're going to fail out of pre-med. There's no middle ground.
After Jake left, Marcus sat alone at his table, staring at his research materials. His list of questions for Sister Cora seemed somehow less important now, overshadowed by the weight of his friend's words. Jake was right. Marcus's modern life was falling apart while he focused on medieval concerns. His chemistry grade was suffering. He was missing important classes. His best friend was losing faith in him. But in 2 days, his Valdres family would begin a dangerous journey to an unknown city, fleeing from magical threats that could destroy everything he cared about in that world. How could he prioritize chemistry homework over their survival? Marcus packed up his materials, carefully folding his list of questions for Sister Cora and tucking it into his notebook. The research could wait. Right now, he needed to figure out how to salvage his chemistry grade before it was too late. But as he walked back to his dorm, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was running out of time in both worlds. The evacuation in Valdres was imminent. His academic standing in Chicago was deteriorating rapidly, and somehow he had to find a way to succeed in both places. Failure in either world would mean letting down people who depended on him. The weight of that responsibility felt heavier than all the textbooks in the library combined. Chapter 7. The Fraud. Marcus found Sister Cora sitting alone beside the soldiers' campfire the evening before their departure. She studied what looked like a leather-bound journal by flickering light. The other guards were busy with quiet conversation or tending equipment, creating a pocket of privacy around the military chaplain. Marcus approached slowly, clutching his carefully prepared questions. His research in the university library had given him a framework for inquiries that might seem natural from a curious village youth.
Sister Cora, might I speak with you?
Of course, Marcus, please sit. Though I confess surprised to see you awake at this hour. Tomorrow begins a long journey.
She looked up from her journal, green eyes reflecting the firelight. Marcus settled beside her, his notebook hidden in his jacket.
I've been thinking about what you said, about the capital having resources for learning, and I have questions, many questions.
Curiosity serves the faithful well. What troubles your mind?
Stars, do you know them? Can you read their meanings?
Sister Cora's expression sharpened with interest.
You ask of celestial navigation. Such knowledge typically belongs to ship captains and learned astronomers.
I've watched them since childhood. Some nights I see patterns, movements. I wonder, are they the same everywhere? If I traveled far enough, would I see different stars?
A profound question. The star charts speak of different constellations visible from distant lands. Sailors who trade with the Eastern kingdoms tell of unfamiliar star patterns. But the great celestial bodies, the moon, the wandering stars, these remain constant.
Marcus felt his pulse quicken.
The wandering stars?
The bright lights that move against the star field. The red wanderer, the morning star, the swift messenger. Learned men debate their nature, but sailors use them for navigation across great distances.
The red wanderer. Mars? The morning star? Venus? Marcus's heart raced as he realized Sister Cora was describing the same planetary system he knew from his modern world.
Have your people always known of these things? The star patterns? The wandering lights?
Ancient knowledge preserved by the learned orders. But tell me, what prompts such questions? Most farm youth concern themselves with more immediate matters.
Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but heavy footsteps interrupted him. A short figure emerged from the darkness beyond the firelight, a man in his middle years wearing the ornate armor of a high-ranking officer.
Sister Cora, forgive the interruption. I was making final rounds before tomorrow's departure.
No interruption at all, Commander Kane. I was speaking with Marcus of Millhaven, the young man I mentioned who shows remarkable innovation for one of his background.
Commander Kane's gaze fell on Marcus, who felt suddenly very small beside the fire. The commander was perhaps 40 years of age, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His presence commanded immediate attention in a way that had nothing to do with his rank insignia.
Ah yes, the village in Avair. Sister Cora tells me you've been making writing tools from bark and ash. Clever work.
Simple necessity.
Please, demonstrate this writing system. I confess curiosity about such remarkable creativity from someone without formal education.
Marcus hesitated, then pulled out his bark paper and crude pencil. Under the commander's watchful gaze, he carefully wrote, "Commander Kane leads with wisdom." Commander Kane examined the marks with the attention of someone evaluating evidence. He studied the consistent letter forms, the systematic approach to representing sounds, the practical engineering of the writing materials themselves.
Fascinating. Sister Cora, would you excuse us? I believe Marcus and I should speak privately.
After Sister Cora departed with obvious reluctance, Commander Kane fixed Marcus with a gaze that seemed to look straight through him.
Before we continue, there's something I should mention about one of the refugees.
Go on.
A woman named Celestine. She arrived 3 days ago with a group from Westbrook, but something about her doesn't fit.
Explain.
Marcus had been wrestling with how to present his concerns without sounding paranoid.
Her clothes are travel-worn, but the fabric quality is too fine for a common refugee. And when the others from Westbrook tell stories about their village, she just listens, never adds details, never corrects anything, just nods along.
And this concerns you because?
Because she doesn't act like someone who lost everything. The other refugees, they grieve, they worry, they argue about what they should have brought or left behind. But Celestine, she watches everything with this strange calm, like she's observing rather than experiencing.
Interesting observation. I'll have my men keep a discreet eye on her.
Thank you for listening. I wasn't sure
If I'd take a village youth's concern seriously, good instincts should be valued regardless of their source. Now then, shall we discuss the truth?
Sir?
Marcus of Millhaven, in my 23 years of military service, I have encountered exactly 3 individuals who possessed what I call true genius. Each one carried themselves with a particular confidence and ease with complex concepts that marked them as fundamentally different from common folk.
Marcus felt cold despite the fire's warmth.
I don't understand.
One was Master Thymon Starweaver at the Royal Academy, a man who could explain the movement of celestial bodies and the nature of magical forces with equal facility.
Marcus stared into the fire, understanding the commander's implication.
You think I learned from someone?
I know you learned from someone. The question is whether you'll admit it or continue this pretense of natural innovation.
The silence stretched between them. Marcus could hear the distant sounds of the camp soldiers checking equipment, horses shifting in their picket lines, the soft murmur of conversations around other fires.
What if I said I was a fraud?
Then I would say you're a remarkably well-educated fraud, and I would wonder who taught you. But I would also say that frauds who can produce genuine innovation are often more valuable than authentic scholars who produce nothing of worth.
Marcus looked up, surprised by the commander's pragmatic response.
You see, Marcus, I care less about the source of your knowledge than its application. These writing materials, this notation system, they work, they solve problems. If you learn them from a hidden teacher, that teacher chose to share valuable knowledge with you.
So you won't expose me?
Expose you as what? Someone who learned useful skills and chose to apply them for his family's benefit? That's commendable, not criminal.
Marcus felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by curiosity.
You mentioned 3 geniuses.
The second was a court physician who could diagnose ailments from the slightest symptoms. The third was a man who claimed to see the future. He predicted 3 separate bandit attacks with perfect accuracy before disappearing one night.
What would you advise?
Be honest about your limitations. No one expects a farm youth to possess advanced theoretical knowledge. But practical innovation, learned skills applied creatively, that's both believable and valuable.
Commander Kane stood, brushing dust from his armor.
If you're interested in expanding your education, the capital offers opportunities. Master Thymon Starweaver at the Royal Academy, in particular, maintains an open-door policy for those who demonstrate genuine intellectual curiosity.
The Academy accepts village youth?
The Academy accepts anyone who can contribute meaningfully to the pursuit of knowledge, and Master Thymon has a particular interest in unconventional approaches to conventional problems.
After the commander departed, Marcus sat alone by the dying fire, processing the evening's revelations. He'd been declared a fraud, but somehow felt more hopeful than before. Commander Kane's pragmatic acceptance of learned skills provided a framework for explaining his modern knowledge without revealing its true source. More importantly, the mention of Master Thymon the Starweaver offered a potential path forward. An academy that valued unconventional thinking, led by someone interested in innovative approaches, that sounded like exactly what Marcus needed. He pulled out his notebook and added a new entry to his list of questions.
Master Thymon Starweaver, what kind of man? What interests him? Royal Academy, how does one gain admittance? What do they study? Fraud, identity, how to maintain useful knowledge while seeming authentic.
As Marcus prepared to return to his family's wagon, he realized the evening had provided more than answers to his astronomical questions. He gained a potential mentor's name, a possible educational path, and most importantly, permission to be exactly what he was, someone with unusual knowledge who wanted to use it constructively. Tomorrow they would begin the journey to Drakmore. When they arrived, Marcus would seek out Master Thymon Starweaver at the Royal Academy. And perhaps, finally, he would find someone who could help him understand both the world he lived in and the knowledge he'd brought to it. But first, he had one more task to complete before sleep. Tyler had promised to help with research, and Marcus had Tyler's list of strategic communities bookmarked on his laptop. If Master Timon proved interested in unconventional approaches to problems, Marcus wanted to be prepared with the most unconventional thinking he could find. Back in his modern world, there was an entire internet full of people discussing exactly the kind of strategic challenges he might face in Valdris. Time to start taking advantage of that resource. Chapter 8. The Journey Begins. Dawn came too early, and with too much finality. Marcus woke to the sound of wagons creaking and livestock protesting, the entire village of Millhaven transforming into something that looked like a medieval refugee caravan.
Time to go, lad. The sisters want us moving before full light.
His grandfather said softly, touching Marcus's shoulder. Despite his age and persistent cough, Aldrich's eyes held steady determination. Marcus rolled off his straw mattress for what he knew would be the last time. Around him, his family moved with the efficiency of people who'd spent 2 days making impossible decisions about what pieces of their life they could carry and what they'd have to leave forever. The house felt empty already, stripped of anything portable and valuable. 40 years of accumulated memories reduced to what 5 cows could carry and what 13 people could bear on their backs. They couldn't afford a wagon, so they loaded up their remaining cattle and prepared to walk.
Marcus, come see what Commander Kane wants.
Big Tom's voice boomed from outside, somehow managing to sound cheerful, despite the circumstances. Marcus pulled on his traveling clothes, his sturdiest tunic and the boots his mother had crafted for him last winter, and stepped outside into organized chaos. The entire village was in motion, families loading final belongings, children crying or running underfoot, livestock being herded into traveling formation. Sister Cora stood beside her horse, checking items off a list with military precision. Commander Kane was near the column's rear, talking with several of the older village men. When he spotted Marcus approaching with Big Tom, he gestured them over.
Marcus of Millhaven and Thomas, correct? I have a proposition for you both.
Sir!
The rear guard detail is short-handed. 2 of my soldiers came down with fever during the night, and I need reliable men to help escort the slower families and wagons. The work pays 2 silver pieces each for the journey, plus additional rations.
Marcus felt his pulse quicken. 2 silver pieces was more money than his family had seen in months.
What would we need to do?
Walk with the trailing wagons, help families who fall behind, watch for stragglers or anyone who might need assistance. Basic escort duty.
The commander's gaze fixed on Big Tom.
I'm told you're strong enough to lift a wagon wheel out of a rut, single-handed.
Stronger than that, sir. Can carry 2 grown men if needed.
And you have shown yourself to be resourceful, good judgment in difficult situations.
Marcus thought about his family's desperate need for money, about the uncertainty waiting for them in Drakmore. But he also felt a pang of disappointment. He'd been hoping to travel with Sister Cora, to ask her his million questions about the world and, most importantly, about magic.
We accept.
Excellent. Report to Sergeant Harwick at the column's rear. He'll explain your duties. One warning, the rear guard sees the most trouble if trouble comes. Bandits target the back of columns, assuming that's where the weak and valuable travel. Stay alert.
An hour later, Marcus found himself walking beside a creaking wagon driven by an elderly couple he didn't recognize, their possessions covered by a patched canvas tarp. Big Tom strode easily beside him, carrying a travel pack that would have crushed Marcus and whistling softly to himself. Sergeant Harwick walked point for their small group, a weathered man in his 40s with the kind of face that had seen too many battles. His graying beard was cut short in military fashion, and his eyes never stopped moving, constantly scanning the countryside for threats. He carried himself with the economical movements of a professional soldier, never wasting energy but always ready to act. His mail shirt was well maintained but showed the scratches and dents of actual combat, and he wore a sword that looked like it had seen plenty of use.
Don't look so worried. Adventure, that's what this is. First time either of us has been more than a day's walk from home.
Doesn't feel like adventure. Feels like running away.
Sometimes running away and moving toward are the same thing. Besides, that Sister Cora said there'd be opportunities in the capital. Opportunities for clever fellows like you.
The first few days of the journey passed peacefully enough. Marcus learned the rhythm of walking beside wagons, helping when wheels stuck in soft ground, keeping an eye on children who wandered too far from their families. The other rear-guard soldiers, Sergeant Harwick and 2 men-at-arms named Dorian and Mills, proved competent but tired, grateful for the additional help. The routine became familiar. Wake before dawn, break camp, walk for hours with brief rest stops, make camp at dusk, eat, sleep, repeat. Marcus found himself adapting to the physical demands, his legs growing stronger, his shoulders broader from helping with heavy loads. During the quiet moments, he often found himself staring at the stars, thinking about his conversation with Sister Cora. The same constellations looked down on both his worlds, but here they felt more immediate, more meaningful. No light pollution, no city noise, just the vast sweep of the night sky and the gentle sounds of sleeping families. On the 4th day, as the sun reached its peak and the column paused for their midday rest, Marcus felt the familiar drowsiness that preceded his world transitions. He found a spot beside one of the wagons and closed his eyes, letting the gentle sounds of the caravan fade away. Marcus jolted awake to his alarm buzzing insistently. Wednesday morning. Biolab at 9 a.m., followed by chemistry lecture, then 3 hours of what Professor Martinez had cheerfully called intensive problem-solving sessions, but what everyone else knew was really hard math.
Morning, sunshine. You were talking in your sleep again. Something about wagons and rear guards?
Stress dreams about being late for things.
Speaking of being late.
Jake tapped his watch meaningfully. The next 8 hours passed in a blur of academic tedium that made Marcus appreciate the simple clarity of walking beside wagons. Biology lab involved dissecting a fetal pig while trying not to think about the livestock in his Valdris caravan. Chemistry lecture was 3 hours of Professor Chen droning about molecular structures that Marcus already understood better than she did. But it was the calculus problem-solving session that nearly broke him.
Mr. Chen, you seem distracted today. This integral should be straightforward for someone of your mathematical background.
Marcus stared at the equation on his paper, his mind still half-focused on wagon wheels and road conditions. In Valdris, math meant calculating feed ratios and travel times. Here, it meant abstract problems that had no connection to anything real.
Sorry, Professor. I'm just tired.
Perhaps you should consider getting more sleep instead of whatever extracurricular activities are occupying your nights.
After Marcus finally stumbled through the problem, he found himself in the library, supposedly studying for tomorrow's chemistry quiz, but actually staring blankly at molecular diagrams while his mind wandered to medieval supply lines and bandit tactics.
Dude, you look like death. Want to take a break? I'm streaming a chill strategy game tonight. Nothing intense, just base building and resource management.
Can't. Quiz tomorrow.
When's the last time you actually had fun? Like, genuine fun, not just obligation-fulfilling academic achievement?
Marcus thought about Big Tom's cheerful whistling as they walked, about Sister Cora's interesting conversations by firelight, about the simple satisfaction of helping families with their wagons.
It's been a while.
That's depressing, man. Life's too short to spend it all studying. Look, just hang out for an hour. Sometimes your brain needs a break to actually process information.
But Marcus couldn't focus on Tyler's game either. Every strategic decision reminded him of real choices he'd have to make in Valdris. Every resource management challenge echoed problems his family faced on their journey to Drakmore. By 10 p.m., Marcus was back in his dorm room, surrounded by textbooks and feeling like he'd accomplished absolutely nothing meaningful all day. His chemistry knowledge was already beyond what they were teaching. His biology work felt redundant compared to practical animal care. Even his literature assignments seemed shallow compared to the real human stories he witnessed in Valdris. Marcus walked down the hall and knocked on Jake's door. His friend answered in his pajamas, toothbrush in hand.
Jake, do you ever feel like you're wasting your time?
With what? School?
With everything. Like you're going through the motions of a life that doesn't really matter?
That's a pretty heavy question for a Wednesday night. You sure you're okay?
Yeah, just thinking too much.
Well, stop thinking and start sleeping. Tomorrow's a new day.
As Marcus finally drifted off to sleep, he felt relief at the prospect of returning to Valdris, where his choices had real consequences and his knowledge could actually help people. Marcus opened his eyes to afternoon sunlight filtering through the canvas of a wagon cover. The caravan had resumed its journey while he slept, and he could hear Big Tom's voice nearby, chatting amiably with Sergeant Harwick about the best techniques for loading supply packs.
There he is. Thought you might sleep through the whole day. Must have needed it.
Marcus stretched, working out the kinks from sleeping on hard ground. After 8 hours of academic tedium, the simple physicality of walking and helping with wagons felt like a blessing.
How far did we travel while I was sleeping?
Few miles. Nothing eventful. Though we should stay alert, this stretch of road is known for bandit activity.
As if summoned by his words, movement flickered in the tree line ahead. It was past midday when the trouble started.
Movement in the trees ahead could be nothing but...
Marcus squinted toward the tree line that bordered the road. At first he saw nothing, then caught a glimpse of metal reflecting sunlight between the branches.
Bandits?
Most likely. They've been watching us for the past mile, waiting for the right spot. Keep moving. Don't stop for anything unless I give the word.
The attack came suddenly. 6 men burst from the forest, armed with makeshift weapons, their faces masked with dirty cloth. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd done this before.
Stand and deliver. Your coin and goods, and nobody gets hurt.
Marcus felt his body freeze, his mind going completely blank. This was nothing like the strategic thinking exercises he'd done with Tyler, nothing like the theoretical problems he solved in his college courses. These were real men, with real weapons who wanted to rob them. But Big Tom reacted like he'd been born for this moment.
No, you can't have our things.
We don't have anything here, Tom, and we are not soldiers. Just let them.
Get out of the way, boy. We don't want to hurt anyone, but we will if we must.
Then you'll have to hurt me first.
What happened next unfolded with brutal simplicity. The bandits rushed forward, expecting to overwhelm the rear guard through numbers. Sergeant Harwick and his men engaged the main group with professional efficiency, steel ringing against steel as they formed a protective line. But Big Tom was something else entirely. The first bandit to reach Tom, a wiry man with a club, swung hard at Tom's head. Tom simply ducked, grabbed the man by his shirt, and lifted him clean off the ground with one massive hand.
Hey now, that's not very nice.
He tossed the bandit into a tree with a solid thud. The man slumped to the ground, groaning and clutching his ribs. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself face to face with another bandit, a scarred woman with a rusty sword. She shoved him hard, sending him stumbling backward into a wagon wheel.
Stay down, boy.
Marcus scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering. This was nothing like the strategic exercises with Tyler. This was real, immediate, and terrifying. He could hear the clash of weapons, could smell the sweat and fear, could see the genuine intent to harm in the woman's eyes. Sergeant Harwick was engaged with 2 bandits at once, his professional training evident in his clean, efficient movements. His sword work was economical and deadly, each strike calculated to disable rather than kill if possible. But one of his men, Mills, took a sword cut to his arm and cried out in pain. That's when Tom really got angry.
You hurt Mills. You hurt Mills!
Tom bellowed, abandoning his gentle approach entirely. He grabbed the nearest bandit, a large man who probably thought his size would intimidate people, and simply squeezed. The bandit's sword fell from nerveless fingers as Tom's grip tightened around his wrist.
Ow, ow, ow. Let go.
Say you're sorry for hurting Mills.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Tom released him, and the bandit clutched his probably bruised wrist, staring at Tom in disbelief. The sight of their large companion being handled like a child seemed to drain the fight out of the remaining bandits. The woman who'd been threatening Marcus hesitated, her sword wavering. Sergeant Harwick pressed his advantage, disarming one opponent while keeping the other at bay with the point of his blade.
This isn't worth it. The big one's not natural.
The remaining bandits looked at their unconscious companion against the tree, their leader nursing his injured wrist, and Sergeant Harwick's steady advance with his blood-stained sword. They decided they had urgent business elsewhere.
Graband.
And they scattered into the forest like leaves before a storm.
Well, that was certainly educational. Son, have you ever considered military service?
Never really thought about it. Marcus is the clever one. I just help when things need lifting.
Tom, that was incredible. How did you learn to fight like that?
Was I fighting? Seems simple enough. They seemed so slow. Bad men trying to hurt good people, so you stop them. Besides, they threatened our families. Can't allow that.
As they resumed their journey, Marcus found himself processing what had happened. In his modern world, violence was theoretical, something that happened in movies or video games. Here, it was immediate and personal. People could get hurt, could die. But Tom had handled it with the same straightforward competence he brought to farm work. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just clear action when action was needed.
Tom, thank you.
For what?
W, for protecting everyone, for being brave when I froze up.
Marcus, you're brave in different ways. You think of solutions no one else sees. You helped the cattle, improved the crops, made that writing system that impressed Sister Cora. I'm good at hitting things and lifting heavy objects. You're good at everything else.
I didn't feel good at anything during that fight.
First time's always scary. You did fine, lad. Staying calm and not panicking is half the battle. Your friend here has the makings of a fine soldier, natural fighter, good instincts.
What about the bandits we left behind?
Dorian and Mills will bind their wounds and point them toward the nearest town, assuming they're smart enough to find honest work instead of trying this again. Times are hard, drives some men to desperate choices.
As evening approached, the column made camp in a defensible clearing beside a stream. Marcus helped gather firewood and set up the rear guard's small camp, his mind still processing the day's events.
Marcus, you're quiet tonight.
Just thinking.
About the bandits?
About everything. The attack, leaving home, what we'll find in Drakmor. I keep feeling like I don't know anything real about this world.
What do you mean?
I know about crops and cattle and farming, but I don't know about fighting or cities or how people really survive when everything goes wrong. I've been living in the village like it was the whole world.
Well, now we get to learn about the rest of it. Together.
You're not worried?
Course I'm worried. But Marcus, you've never steered us wrong yet. Your strange ideas work. So if you think going to this capital place is the right choice, then it's the right choice.
Marcus felt the familiar weight of his cousin's absolute trust.
What if I'm wrong this time?
Then we'll figure something else out. That's what family does.
Later that night, lying in his bedroll beside the dying campfire, Marcus stared up at the stars. The same constellations he'd discussed with Sister Cora, the same sky he studied in his astronomy class back in Chicago. Tomorrow they'd be another day closer to Drakmor, another day further from everything familiar. But today had taught him something important. When real danger came, he could count on Big Tom completely. And maybe, just maybe, Tom was right to count on him in return. The bandit attack had been his first real adventure in Valdris, and he'd learned something crucial. This world was more dangerous than he'd ever imagined, but he wasn't facing it alone. As sleep finally claimed him, Marcus could hear Tom's gentle snoring and the quiet voices of the soldiers maintaining watch. For the first time since leaving Millhaven, he felt something that might actually be hope. Chapter 9. The Choice of Paths. Marcus woke to the sound of cheering and rough laughter. He rolled from his bedroll, squinting in the early morning light that filtered through the canvas of their makeshift shelter. The refugee camp bustled with activity. Families packing their meager belongings, soldiers checking equipment, and somewhere nearby the distinctive sounds of a wrestling match. He pushed aside the canvas flap and stepped outside immediately, spotting the source of the commotion. A circle of soldiers had formed around two figures grappling in the center. One was a lean soldier in leather armor. The other was Big Tom, shirtless and grinning despite the sweat streaming down his face. Tom moved with surprising grace for his size, his enhanced strength evident in every controlled movement. The soldier wrestling him was clearly skilled, but Tom's combination of raw power gave him a decisive advantage. With a final burst of speed, Tom swept his opponent's legs and pinned him to the ground. The circle of soldiers erupted in cheers and good-natured ribbing. Tom extended a massive hand to help his opponent to his feet, both men laughing as they clasped forearms in the traditional warrior's greeting.
That's 3 in a row, farm boy. You got something special there.
Marcus recognized the grizzled veteran from their journey, one of Commander Kane's most trusted men.
Just been practicing what you taught me, sir.
Practicing? Son, you've been training for what, 2 weeks? Most of these lads have been drilling for years.
He gestured at the defeated soldier who was nursing his pride along with bruised ribs.
Alex here is a 5-year veteran.
Never felt strength like that, Sarge. It's like trying to wrestle a bear.
That's what I'm talking about. You've got the spark, boy, and you should learn to use it proper. You should consider joining up once we reach the capital.
Join up with who, sir?
Lord Hammond's provincial forces. Good men, honest leadership, and they fight for something that matters. None of this Royal Guard nonsense. Bunch of pampered city boys who wouldn't know real combat if it bit them in the arse.
Morning, Sergeant. You're trying to recruit my cousin?
Morning, Marcus. Your cousin's got talent. Real talent. Be ashamed to waste it on farming when there's fighting to be done.
I'll ask Marcus. What do you think?
Marcus studied his cousin's face, seeing the mix of pride and uncertainty there. Tom had always been strongest when he had clear direction, simple goals to work toward.
There might be good options in the capital. Schools, academies, different kinds of training. We should look around first before making any decisions.
Yeah. Marcus always thinks these things through proper.
Thinking's good, but don't think too long. War's coming whether we're ready or not, and men like your cousin could make the difference. You keep practicing, boy, and if you change your mind, find me. Lord Hammond's always looking for soldiers with both strength and honor.
What do you really think?
I think that you and I could be good partners in whatever we do. Your strength, my ideas. We could build something together, but let's get to the capital first. See what's available, then decide.
Partners? Like real business partners?
Why not? You've got abilities most people don't, and I've got plans that could use someone I trust completely. Besides, someone's got to keep me from getting too clever for my own good.
That's what family's for. All right, we'll wait and see what the capital has to offer. But Marcus?
Yeah?
If things don't work out and the kingdom really needs defending, I might want to help.
When the time comes, we'll figure out the best way to help. Together.
The conversation was interrupted by the sound of horns, the signal to break camp and resume their journey. Around them, the refugee caravan began its daily transformation from temporary village to moving column. Families loaded their possessions onto carts. Soldiers checked their equipment, and the organized chaos of 2,000 people preparing to travel filled the morning air.
Come on, let's get our things together.
They spent the next hour helping pack the family's belongings and securing their livestock for the day's march. Marcus's grandfather moved slowly but steadily, his weathered hands still capable despite his age. The twins. Tim and Tam had appointed themselves official keepers of the family's chickens, a responsibility they took with 9-year-old seriousness. As the caravan began to move, Marcus and Tom found themselves walking near the rear of the column, tasked with helping any families who fell behind. Commander Kane had positioned his most reliable soldiers at the back, men who could be trusted to protect the vulnerable and ensure no one was left behind. The morning air was crisp, and the rhythm of walking soon settled into a comfortable pace. Marcus found his mind wandering to the future, to the possibilities that awaited them in Drakmore. Sister Cora had mentioned academies, scholars, resources for unusual talents. There would be markets, guilds, opportunities for someone with modern knowledge and a strong partner.
Marcus, what kind of business do you think we could start?
I'm not sure yet. Depends on what the capital needs, what resources are available, but I've got some ideas brewing.
Like what?
Soap was just the beginning. There are dozens of things people need that could be made better, faster, cheaper, construction techniques, farming improvements, maybe even basic machinery.
And you think my strength could help with that?
Tom, in my reading about other places, I've learned that strength and intelligence working together can accomplish incredible things. We just need to find the right application.
I like the sound of that. Building things instead of just fighting.
Though if fighting becomes necessary, I'd want you on our side.
They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the steady rhythm of the march and the weight of their possessions creating a meditative quality to the journey. Around them, other refugees struggled with similar decisions. What to do in a new city, how to rebuild their lives, how to survive in uncertain times. By evening, when they made camp for the night, Marcus had filled several pages of his bark paper with notes and sketches. Plans for products that could be made with medieval materials, business models that could work in a guild-based economy, partnerships that might benefit both parties. Tom watched him work by firelight, occasionally asking questions, but mostly content to sharpen his sword and practice the transmutation exercises Sergeant Harwick had taught him. The simple, steady companionship felt right to Marcus. Complementary strengths working toward common goals.
With you planning and me lifting, how hard can it be?
Famous last words.
But as he drifted off to sleep, Marcus felt optimistic about their prospects. The capital would bring challenges, but it would also bring opportunities. With Tom's strength and his own knowledge, they could build something worthwhile together. The question was, what would they wake up to find? Marcus Chen jolted awake to the insistent buzz of his phone alarm and the horrifying realization that he had a chemistry midterm in exactly 2 hours.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
He scrambled out of bed while his brain tried to process the abrupt transition from medieval campfires to fluorescent dorm lighting. His body still ached from yesterday's walk alongside the evacuation column, his muscles protesting the sudden shift from physical labor to academic panic.
Dude, you're up! I was starting to worry. You've been sleeping like the dead for 10 hours straight.
Midterm. How did I forget about the midterm?
Because you've been weird and distracted for weeks? Also, you talk in your sleep now? Something about wagons and bandits? Pretty atmospheric.
I talk in my sleep?
Yeah, it's like listening to someone narrate a medieval documentary. Pretty entertaining, actually. Jake recorded some of it for you.
You, what?
Just the funny parts. Listen to this.
Jake hit play and Marcus heard his own voice thick with sleep. Tom, the oxen are getting loose again. No, wait. That's not an ox. That's Professor Harrison in a chemistry apron and he's asking about molecular bonds, but the bandits are coming and…
Delete that. Delete it right now.
Come on, it's hilarious. You sound like you're living in some epic fantasy novel while doing homework.
Delete it. Jake.
Fine, fine. But seriously, you've been having the most elaborate stress dreams. Are you sure you're okay?
Just processing a lot of information. College stress, you know.
20 minutes later, Marcus sat in Professor Wilson's chemistry classroom, staring at a midterm exam that should have been terrifying but felt almost absurdly simple. After spending subjective weeks worrying about literal survival questions about molecular structures and chemical reactions seemed wonderfully straightforward.
Mr. Chen, you're working enthusiastically today.
Sorry, Professor. Just really concentrated today.
No need to apologize. It's refreshing to see such engagement. Your approach to these synthesis problems is particularly creative, almost like you're thinking about practical applications rather than just theoretical knowledge.
I try to think about how chemistry works in the real world.
After the exam, Marcus walked across campus with Jake and Tyler, his mind already shifting back toward Valdres' concerns. What was happening with the caravan today? Had they made good time? Were they safe?
Earth to Marcus. You're doing that thing again where you stare off into space like you're receiving transmissions from another dimension.
Sorry. Just thinking about the exam.
Dude, you crushed it. I could practically see the confidence radiating off you. Hey, speaking of confidence, want to celebrate by helping me with a stream tonight? I'm doing a strategy game tournament, and chat keeps asking when the smart guy's coming back.
Maybe. Actually, you know what? Yes. But can we focus on defensive strategies tonight? Like how to protect a group when you're outnumbered?
That's oddly specific.
Just thinking about asymmetric warfare theory. It's fascinating stuff.
Dude, yes! There's this whole meta developing around survival tactics when you're the underdog. Chat will love it.
As they reached their dorm, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in weeks. The stakes in the real world were low. The midterm had gone well, his friendships felt solid, and somehow his Valdres experiences were making him better at both strategic thinking and practical problem-solving. Maybe, just maybe, he could succeed in both worlds. Chapter 10. Capital Bound. Marcus woke to the familiar sounds of his dorm room. Tyler's mechanical keyboard clicking steadily, the distant hum of the heating system. For a moment he felt disoriented, his mind still processing the medieval camp, the weight of a sword in his hands, the rhythmic pace of marching. He sat up slowly, checking his phone. 2047 a.m. The room was dark except for the glow of Tyler's multiple monitors, where his roommate was apparently deep in some kind of late-night gaming session, headphones clamped over his ears. The transition between worlds always felt jarring, but tonight it seemed particularly stark. In Valdres, he'd been planning business ventures with enhanced strength and magical abilities. Here he was, a college freshman struggling to pass chemistry. But the midterm season was over and Marcus realized he felt more relaxed than he had in weeks. The pressure of exams had lifted, and while his grades weren't stellar, he'd managed to avoid complete disaster. More importantly, he gained valuable insights into what the capital might offer. He reached for his laptop. If he was going to help his Valdres family succeed in Drakmore, he needed to understand what kinds of opportunities a medieval capital might provide. He started with basic searches: medieval city economics, guild systems, urban markets in pre-industrial societies. The information was fragmentary but useful. Cities were centers of trade, specialized crafts and knowledge exchange. Marcus opened a new document and began making notes. Potential products for Drakmore, improved soaps and cleaning products, better construction materials, techniques, food preservation methods. simple tools and devices, writing materials and paper. Tom's strengths, physical abilities, loyal and trustworthy, quick learner for practical skills, natural protection, security capabilities. Capital advantages, larger market for products, access to raw materials through trade, guild connections and business networks, proximity to scholars and academy resources. He spent the next hour researching historical examples of successful innovations in medieval cities. The printing press improved metallurgy, architectural advances. All had spread through urban centers where skilled craftsmen and merchants could recognize their value.
Yo, Marcus, you're up late. Everything okay?
Just doing some research. Bah!
Research? Dude, midterms are over. You're supposed to be celebrating, not studying. Medieval economics? Are you creating a D&D campaign?
Something like that. I'm thinking about what kinds of businesses would work in a medieval city.
Oh? Like economic simulation stuff? That's actually pretty cool. I've seen some streamers do medieval merchant roleplay. It's surprisingly complex.
Any ideas what would be most profitable?
Well, in most games, the key is finding something everyone needs, but nobody else is making efficiently, like basic necessities with improved quality or convenience. Why are you thinking about writing a business management game?
Maybe, just exploring possibilities.
Cool. Well, if you need any help with game mechanics or market research, let me know. I've got connections in the indie game community.
After Tyler returned to his setup, Marcus closed his laptop and lay back down. The research had been helpful, but more importantly, it had given him confidence in his plans. The capital would offer opportunities, and with Tom as his partner, they could build something worthwhile. In a couple of days, they might reach Drakmore. Marcus intended to be ready. The next few days passed in a blur of relative normalcy. In the modern world, Marcus caught up on his coursework, spent time with Jake and Tyler, and gradually felt his stress levels drop. His midterm performance had been better than expected, and for the first time in weeks, he wasn't panicking about immediate academic crises. In Valdris, the caravan continued its steady march toward the capital. The days fell into a comfortable rhythm, walking, helping other refugees, sharing stories around evening campfires. Marcus found himself growing stronger physically and more confident in his ability to handle whatever challenges awaited them in Drakmore. But it was the morning of the 6th day that everything changed. Marcus woke to the sound of horns echoing across the valley and the excited murmur of hundreds of voices. After 18 days of walking, the evacuation column had finally reached their destination.
Marcus, come see. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Marcus rolled out of his bedroll and stumbled to his feet, his body automatically adjusting to the pre-dawn chill and the familiar aches of sleeping on the ground. 18 days of travel had hardened him in ways he'd never expected. His hands were calloused from helping with wagons, his legs stronger from constant walking, his shoulders broader from carrying supplies. But nothing could have prepared him for his first sight of Drakmore. The capital city was nestled against a semicircle of towering mountains, their peaks snow-capped and imposing like the fortress cities from his literature classes. The city itself sprawled across the valley floor, protected by mountains on 3 sides and massive stone walls on the 4th. The walls rose impossibly high, punctuated by towers that seemed to scrape the sky itself. Behind the walls, Marcus could see layer upon layer of buildings climbing up the mountainside in terraces. Some built of gray stone, some of timber, some made from materials he couldn't identify from this distance. The architecture seemed to flow with the natural contours of the mountains, as if the city had grown organically from the rock itself. And the size. The sheer overwhelming size of it all.
How many people live there?
Perhaps 600,000 souls within the walls, another 100,000 in the outer settlements. I take it Millhaven didn't prepare you for such scale.
Millhaven has maybe 300 people. This is...
He trailed off his mind, trying to process what he was seeing. From his modern world perspective, 600,000 people wasn't that impressive. Chicago alone had nearly 3 million. But seeing such a concentration of population in a medieval setting was staggering. The logistics alone must be incredible. Food distribution, waste management, water supply governance. And the opportunities.
Sister Cora, what do people do for work in a city that size?
Everything imaginable. Craftsmen, merchants, scholars, entertainers, builders, scribes, smiths, bakers, brewers. Why? What are you thinking?
Marcus was thinking about soap, about improved agriculture techniques, about writing systems and basic hygiene and all the small innovations that had impressed people in tiny Millhaven. In a city of 600,000 people, how many would pay for better soap? How many merchants might want improved record-keeping systems? How many problems existed that could be solved with knowledge from his modern world?
I'm thinking that a city this size must have challenges that a village never faces.
Indeed it does. And opportunities as well for those clever enough to see them.
The column began its final approach to Drakmoor's gates as the sun climbed higher. Marcus walked beside the wagons, watching the city grow larger and more overwhelming with each step. The walls were even more massive than they'd appeared from a distance, 50 feet high and thick enough for walkways along the top. Guards in gleaming mail watched their approach, but without hostility. This was clearly a planned arrival.
Look at all the people.
Even outside the walls, the activity was incredible. Merchant camps, temporary markets, travelers from dozens of different kingdoms, judging by their varied clothing and equipment. Marcus heard languages he didn't recognize, saw goods he couldn't identify, smelled foods that made his mouth water despite their alien spicing.
Overwhelming, isn't it? Your first time seeing a true city?
Yes, sir, it's incredible.
And profitable for those with the right ideas. The capital rewards innovation, Marcus of Millhaven, particularly the kind that solves practical problems for large numbers of people.
As they passed through the gates, Marcus felt culture shock hit him like a physical blow. The noise was incredible. Thousands of voices, wagon wheels on cobblestones, hammers ringing from workshops, animals protesting their treatment. The smells were equally overwhelming. Food smoke, leather metal spices, and the unmistakable odor of too many people living too close together. But beneath the sensory overload, Marcus recognized something familiar, the energy of commerce, of people buying and selling and making and building.
Stay close. We'll be processed through the refugee settlement office, assigned temporary housing, and given information about work opportunities.
Marcus's mind was already racing. Temporary housing meant rent to pay. Work opportunities meant competition for jobs. His family needed income and quickly. But he had advantages no one else in their group possessed, knowledge from a world centuries ahead of this 1 and 18 days of travel to think about how to apply it.
Tom, I think we're going to do well here.
Of course we are. You've got that look again.
What look? What look?
The same one you had when you figured out how to cure the cattle itch, the planning look. What are you planning now?
Marcus looked around at the bustling city, at the merchants haggling, the craftsmen working the obvious inefficiencies in how goods moved through the crowded streets. He thought about soap chemistry, about writing systems, about the business principles he'd absorbed through Tyler's endless optimization discussions.
Everything. I'm planning everything.
For the first time since learning about Malakar's threat, Marcus felt something beyond mere survival instinct. This city represented opportunity on a scale he'd never imagined. 600,000 potential customers for better products, improved services, more efficient solutions to daily problems. If he could establish himself here, build a network, create valuable connections, maybe he could do more than help his family survive. Maybe he could help fight back against the Dark Wizard's advances. But first he needed to understand how Drakmoor really worked, how business was conducted, who held power, what problems needed solving. He needed to learn the rules of the game before he could start changing them.
Tom, I want you to remember this moment. This is where everything changes for us.
Good change or bad change?
Marcus looked ahead at the spires and towers rising before them, at the incredible complexity of a medieval city that somehow supported 600,000 people through pure human ingenuity and determination.
Good change. Definitely good change.
As their group was led toward the refugee processing center, Marcus began mentally cataloging everything he saw, the layout of streets, the types of businesses, the way goods moved through the city, the obvious bottlenecks and inefficiencies. By the time they reached their temporary housing, Marcus had filled 3 pages of his crude bark paper with notes and observations. The real work was about to begin, and Marcus Chen, armed with knowledge from 2 worlds and the absolute loyalty of the strongest person he knew, was ready to change everything.